Welcome back to Not a Straight Line with me, Pete Daly-Dickson. This is the show that explores the non-linear journeys of artists and entrepreneurs to inspire you as you zigzag through your own non-straight line life. And this week, I had the immense pleasure of being in conversation with Esther Wildenberg. And, well, where to begin with someone like Esther? She is a transcendent thinker and operator with such a thorough understanding of herself and her talents that her confidence shines through her ability to connect and share with her audience. Esther found her purpose after a terrible accident in the Netherlands that left her in long-term recovery. And that purpose, her connection with the spiritual world and her understanding of the vibrations of life have created one of the most interesting and intriguing entrepreneurs I've had the fortune to meet. This episode actually coincides with the release of Esther's new book. The link for the info will be in the show notes. And please use this conversation as your introduction to the wonderful Esther Wildenberg. As with the start of all of these conversations, the three of us just want to close our eyes, unless you're driving, of course, in which case keep them open. But just close your eyes. We'll just do 3 physiological sighs, 2 breaths in through the nose, held, and then breathe out. So just want to breathe in. And again. One last time. Esther Wildenberg, welcome to the Not a Straight Line podcast. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And just a quick name check at the front of the conversation. Thank you to Ross Keating also for introducing us and recommending that you come on the show. Just for the sake of the listener and myself, actually, for that matter, I don't know where you are in the world. Whereabouts are you? Just situate us great geographically.
I'm Laguna Beach, California.
Very nice. Your accent belies that you're not from Laguna Beach, California.
Yeah, my accent always gives it away. No, I'm from the Netherlands.
And how long have you been in Laguna Beach?
11 years.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sure during the course of our conversation, we'll come to the zag point that took you there. But before we get there, we always start these Not a Straight Line conversations with the same question. So when you heard that question for the first time, you said, "Oh yeah, that's easy. I know what that is." What was that turning point in your life that came to mind?
I had really one big major turning point, and that was when I was 23 years old. Just graduated from the University of Amsterdam for dentistry and worked for about 9 months in the industry, and then I ended up in an accident with 2 motorcycles while I was riding my bicycle, and it put me in a difficult situation health-wise. So I ended up in the hospital ICU for about a month. I had 2 near-death experiences in the hospital for several months, and then a long rehab for recovering to get back in shape and walk again and run again and live life again. And wearing 8 years a full body compression suit, and it was a long journey. So that shifted literally everything in my life. From loving the sport, I played field hockey and I was very passionate about that. I was in the dentistry, but I didn't like that much. So that was a blessing. And then my relationships and my friendship. And, when you're 23 years old and you think you're blooming in your life and you're going to put down for at least 3 years, not being really able to go social or go party or play sports or even work. So yeah, that was a tough time, but it was the time I needed to really get connected to my life purpose and my passion and what I wanted to get out of life. And I'm happy it happened at 23 and not at 50. So, looking back, it's always a blessing. When I was in it, I was not so excited about it.
Mm. You mentioned you had 2 near-death experiences. Most people, I imagine the listener and most other people, never even have one in their life. So what is a near-death experience like?
It's in a very simple way. You literally your soul goes out of your body and connects with the afterlife. So in my case, I saw some ancestors, and I will just call them angels. They're just white lights and spirits that actually guide you in your vibration and level up your vibration and connect to your life purpose. For me, both messages came very clear that I had to go back and that I was here for a bigger mission this lifetime. So they literally sent me back. Although my first one, I was like, I'm happy to stay here. But the message was, no, it's not your time. You have to go back.
And was that at odds at all with your beliefs? I mean, did you believe in an afterlife? Did you believe in spirits? And
Yeah, I really believe in afterlife, and that we have many lifetimes to grow our soul to become full and whole. So I already believe that. But when you go through that experience, it just accelerates your connection to source and really start living your life purpose, because life is short. We all think we have forever until we get older. And that's why most people start living their life purpose or do the things they love to do or really wanted to do in their life when they retire. But yeah, when you retire, most of your energy has been gone for most people. And so I tell people all the time, do it now and don't wait, because we wait for an impactful event to happen to change. So most people see a divorce or a cancer diagnosis or a heart attack or a bankruptcy or loss of a loved one, that people realize, wow, life is short. Maybe I should do what I actually like. So that became one of my purposes in life, to wake people up to just not wait.
so where did that belief come in the first place?
I always had a strong connection with source, and I saw dead people, and I never really talked about it as a child because people think you're crazy. So I lived a very lonely life from that perspective, just living my own world and talking to spirits. So I already knew there is, and I had a very strong intuition always. I already knew what people were going to say, or I had this strong, I don't like this person. I don't know why. Or, there is, when you're young, it's just, you think it's part of your journey until you get older and you realize you're actually a little bit different.
Do you remember how old you were when you first kind of had a sense that you were interacting with something that wasn't on the physical plane that you're in?
2, 3 year old, in my little bed, I had at night those spirits visiting me. And then of course I started crying, and my parents said, there's nobody here. And I said, there are, in my broken Dutch as a toddler. But when I got older, I always heard people in the home at night. And and I just never told anyone. But I was scared in the beginning. And later I realized that just spirits that are visiting. And I learned later on how to ask the bad ones to leave and let the good ones stay. Yeah, it's an interesting journey. It's hard to explain because we all are spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So it's really, sometimes the spiritual world is very hard to define. A lot of people just connect to God, and that is, but then it's the same thing. You just connect to the higher source to get connected to the higher vibration and to what's possible in this life and get guidance. That's what we're asking for. So yeah.
And when you say source, what do you mean?
People always ask me, is God the same as, or religion the same as spirituality? And I think the higher meaning of it is because we're all trying to connect something higher and bigger than ourselves, right? So God in general is love, and is putting us in situations that we maybe don't like in the moment, but it's helped us to grow. And in the spiritual world, the divine, the higher source, is the energy where we connect to our true soul purpose. We actually connect with our soul through going to a meditation or a spiritual experience where we're just going to be quiet and connect with who we truly are. And how we really do it is by being in nature or talking to God or talk to angels, because that's the only way our busy minds get quiet, by just, connecting with source. But actually you're connecting with your own soul that is living inside of you. Actually, your soul lives around you and you live in your soul, and your soul is not living inside of you. So that's always a different conversation I have with people, because your whole energy field is your soul, not just, it's in your gut, but that's how we make it for third grade level understandable that we all have a soul, right?
And what else do you remember about your childhood, other than the fact that you had this ability? Yeah, to answer that question first, I do have there's just so many questions in my mind. But what else do you remember about your childhood? Where did you grow up? Do you have any siblings? What was your home life like?
I have a twin sister. I'm an identical twin, and I have a younger sister. So we grew up in The Hague, the Netherlands, and my childhood was like middle class family. I went to school like every other child, played sports, went on vacation to France mostly every summer. Being an identical twin actually was challenging. And for the outside world, it's very romantic, right? They ever, oh, twins, like, but what people don't realize is the pressure people put on twins is fascinating. And I experienced it as a twin. And so it is like, we look the same, so we don't know who we are, right? So people, are you Esther or are you Nicole, right? All the time. Or who is higher grades, who is better in field hockey, who is smarter, who is whatever. There's always this comparison, like even who's taller, like who cares? Like you don't ask any other human being any of those questions except when you see an identical twin. Otherwise, these ridiculous things are going to happen. And then we become sort of like Barbie dolls. We dress them up the same and we think it's cute. And I think for the outside world it is, but for your identity, it's very difficult. So we were always in one sentence. How are you? Now in the English language, you can be one or two or many. In the Dutch language, it's literally two different words.
The many.
The many.
Yeah.
And also when one does something or says something, the other automatically says or does the same thing in people's minds. So we had a hard time. I had a hard time being always looked at as the same. And I forgive people when they still think I'm Nicole and I'm not and I'm Esther. That's fine. Because when you look the same, it is sometimes difficult. And to really grow into your own human being experience and your own identity, who you are with your life purpose and your friends and your things you desire. That was really hard until we both went to a different university and started to have our own friends and our own life and our own partners and journeys. So that had a huge impact actually. And in the moment, I was very annoyed being a twin. And everyone says, oh, you're twins. That's so amazing. And I was like, no, it's not. Although we have an incredible relationship, in a sense, we feel each other, we know what we think, although we're like literally on the other side of the world. She's in the Netherlands and I'm in America. But we think and we know what other people are what we're each feeling or thinking. We sometimes have the same humor or say the same things. When we're together, there's the synchronicity. Although we're totally different personality types and totally different life purpose and the journey is totally different. I think in the source, we have a lot of similarities, but now from an identity perspective.
Was she also able to interact with the spiritual plane in the same way that you were?
And when we were younger, we never talked about it. I think she's very spiritual connected too and tuned in and very sensitive too, like me, high sensitive. She just deals with it differently than I do. Different life paths. We are on totally different life paths.
So you mentioned that there was an accident with two motorcycles. What actually happened?
Yeah, and as you know, the Netherlands, everybody rides a bicycle. So you have bike paths everywhere. And then motorcycles, they have to be on the road. But there was a gas station and they were racing. And one went through the gas station and the other stayed on the road. And the guy that came from the gas station didn't see me on the bike path that was in the middle. And literally, I got pushed into the other motorcycle like a hamburger. So it was, a painful experience and a long journey. And I always say, people say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I say, in the moment it was painful, but I must say that's the best thing that ever happened to me because it put me on a trajectory of my life that really connected me with my life purpose and living my life and not the life of my parents or teachers taught me that I should be living.
You mentioned that one of the things that you were grateful for it almost at the time was that it allowed you to come away from dentistry, which you weren't enjoying so much. So why did you start? Well, why did you go down the dentistry route?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was in searching, who am I and what do I want to do? And I think all teenagers go through that same stage. The thing is, in such an early stage in your school time, you have to decide what direction you want to go, right? And so we get forced sometimes in the direction by what teachers think is going to be best for you or our parents think is best for us. And so my parents thought it would be great. And our neighbors were a dentist and dental hygienist. And I helped them in the summer in the practice. And I said, no, this would be great for you, right? It's a great career. You make a lot of money, you help people. And I'm like, okay, now let's give it a try. And I was in it. And then the sad thing and the great thing is at the same time that the professor said, you're really good. And I like to finish what I start, but I really didn't like it. I finished it and I was like, I'm really not going to do this the rest of my life. I knew that from the first year to university that I was not going to do that the rest of my life, but I wanted to finish it to start something. And then I remember just laying in my bed, like, I hate this so much. I want to do something else, but what am I going to do? And then I literally a few weeks later, I had my accident and I guess that was the message from, let me put you in a tough situation so you have time to think about it. So
Yeah, you had the space. It's really fascinating to me, Esther, how many times this idea, both the idea and the reality of space, time and space being given to my guest, which resulted in the change of direction. There's a guest of mine whose episode came out on my birthday, 11th of December last year. And it wasn't quite as even half as dramatic as yours, but he broke his ankle and he was bedridden or at home for a good chunk of time, 2 or 3 months. And it was in that time that he started to explore the things which now is like totally different from what he was doing. So how important is time and space? I mean, you reflected just before we hit record that you've got a business and you've got a 4-year-old, so there's very little time and space. But how important is it, and what do you do to give yourself time and space?
I listen in the early morning to meditations, or I just do my own meditation. I exercise, go to the gym, go to the sauna. I walk my dog on the beach. Like there's a lot of time I built in for me. Because I know as soon as my workday starts, it's all about my network and my community and my company. And then when Kai comes home from school, it's all about him, right? We are his toy the moment he comes home. So
We are his toy. I love that.
we are. So, we are because he's an only child. So, he didn't see us all day. So he's excited to see us and he wants to play with me, play with me. So that is what we do. And we really make that time for him to play with him. Yesterday afternoon, we rode bikes together for 2 hours outside in the cul-de-sac. Like I did like 200 laps around the cul-de-sac. Well, and that's what you do, because you don't get this time back. I think being a parent at 50, 4-year-old is time. I think one hand it's hard because you realize you're a little older, and on the other hand, you have so much experience and wisdom that you are aware of, a lot of things and do things probably differently than I would have done when you're 25. So, there's always the good and the harder things, but it's all part of the journey, and I enjoy it. It's really hard. I think being a parent for me is the hardest thing I've ever done. I also it's easier to make $1 million than being a parent.
We might have to unpack that. Do you get a sense that he has your gift that you mentioned?
He's very tuned in. Yeah.
How does that manifest?
The things he says, I think he has an old soul and also, but a lot of wisdom, not just an old soul, but a very high vibration. And is the way he communicates at the age of 4 and the things he says. Like the other day, we're driving to school and he says, Mom, are you going to die soon? And I'm like, where's that coming from? I'm like, no, I'm not going to die soon. We're all going to die one day, but I'm not going to die soon. I'm going to be here for a long time. And then it's quiet. Am I going to die? Yeah, but not for a long, 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 long time. So then it's quiet again. He says, but I don't want you to die. And I said, but I'm not going to die anytime soon. And don't worry about it. And he said, yeah, but who are you going to take care of when you're dead? And who am I going to take care of when you're dead? And he's 4.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there driving into school and I'm like, whoa, you have really deep questions for a 4-year-old. And so that tells me that he's very tuned into a different realm and source where he has so many life experiences that he just tunes into it.
Easy for him to express that at home, I guess, maybe less easy at school.
Now, in school, they're very spiritual and very emotional. He goes to a European private school where they learn languages and how to be social and communicate. They have animals there and they do farming. And so there's a lot of grounding and a lot of music and there's a lot of connection to who are you and who do you want to be in this lifetime? So he doesn't go to a regular American school because I think the American school system is like decades behind.
Every institutional school system is decades behind. What you just described that your son goes to is like, that's what school should be for every child.
Yeah. So people say, why are you paying that much money to put them in a private school? I said, because it's less expensive to put them to psychologists and psychiatrists.
Yeah, you're thinking about the whole lifetime cost, eh?
Now, I look at my own journey, how much money I spent on coaches and trainers and seminars and workshops and reading books and hiring people to freaking get me out of my mess. I'm like, but let's give him a great foundation and then he will mess up anyway. We all do, but that's our life journey. But at least get him some really important money. I'm not worried about his intelligence. He's already doing math. The other day he's sitting here, 2 + 2 is 2. 1 + 3 is 4. 3 + 3 is 6. He's 4. And I'm like, I don't think I did it when I was 4. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not concerned about any of that. I think if you look at the school systems worldwide, that I think America is really far behind because I remember my European experience that was way better what they learn here in America. So it's like, you know, but I remember as a child, I hated school because I thought it was the most boring thing. And I was questioning when I'm going to use this in my lifetime, right? Like, when am I going to ever use any of this? Besides, it's good to know something about history or something about the world. But at the end of the day, we wasted so much time where I would love to see how to be a great human being, how to have a great relationship, how to meditate or create inner peace, or how to
How to iron a shirt.
guy, it's fascinating, but I'm not here to change the education system, but my job is to set him. I have 18 years to give him a foundation. I always tell people I have an opportunity. We're leasing him for 18 years, and at 18 the lease expires, and he's on his own. And so we have that very short time. And then I say, actually, we only have 8 years because the moment they're now 9 or 10, they start talking back and have their own opinions. So I think we literally have until he's 8 and he's turning 5 in May. So we're already halfway.
Yeah. Oh, there's a saying. That the Jesuit priests used to say, "Give me a child until he's 7, and I've got him for the rest of his life." That's the time period that you have really.
Their whole spiritual evolve. They're so connected to source until 6, 7.
Yeah.
And then thereafter, all what's happened, they get messed up by their parents and teachers and friends. And then I also, you get messed up for the first 18 years, and the rest of your life, you're trying to recover from the whole mess you were put through for the first 18 years.
So you're lying on your literally almost deathbed at 23. You've had this first near-death experience, and you said earlier, Esther, that you would have been quite happy to stay with them, i.e., stay dead. What was it about that experience? What was happening? What do you remember feeling or experiencing that made you think that?
I was really unhappy. I was suicidal at the age of 15. I was not happy with my life, my childhood. My parents were not in a happy relationship. My dad was very emotional abusive, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so just not a happy environment. And because of all that, I had low self-esteem. I was not happy with my life. I didn't know what to do. And the 20s were like, what the heck? But I don't want to live this life. Like, I was just not happy. And so I think I was like, I'm happy to just go to the other side and come back another lifetime and choose other parents and have a different experience. And I said, this is not how it works. You have to go back. You chose these parents for a reason, and you chose this path because of the growth you want to go through this lifetime. So it doesn't end here.
And how would you describe hearing that in inverted commas? How do you? So you said a couple of times that you were told that no, you've got to go back. How did you kind of experience that?
The first experience was more like it was a very clear message. It's not like clear English. Like people say, "Oh, are they really talking to you?" It isn't. They plant a seed in you that when you wake up, you realize there's so much more to life. It's not like that one sentence. Like it's a vibration, it's an energy, and they put it inside of you that fuels you to think differently. I think that's the best way to describe it. And then the second one, I literally saw a tribal head of a Native American tribe, and he handed me a feather with a little key on it. And he says, I'm going to give you the key to unlock your potential, your life purpose. And it is to help people wake up, to start living their life at a young age and not wait until an impactful event. And that is your path this lifetime, to help as many women, specifically, he said, to just start living their dream and the desires right now in their 20s, and not after they have children and the children are out of the nest. And now they start thinking about a career or the things they really want to do. Because that's what most moms do. They first take care of the whole family. By the time the kids are gone, they're in their late 40s or 50s. And now they're like, what am I going to do with my life? And so, that was a very clear message. But at 23, I knew I was not ready for that message to share with the world. So that's why I went through a long journey of different careers and a lot of coaches and therapists and, reincarnation and rebirth. And I did all those things to just really get strong enough and the confidence and the life experience to really start having that voice. So it was not like overnight that I started to preach that message. It took a long time.
So is the irony of it that you had to wait until you were older to live what it is that you felt that you had to pass on to young people?
Yeah. Because who's going to listen to a 20-year-old? We're living in this world that we think when we're 60, we know everything, and that nobody wants to take advice from a 20-year-old. Now, I like to listen to 20-year-olds because they are going to ignite something that I maybe didn't think about. But most people, if you're not a certain age, they don't respect whatever you have to say. It's just a traditional old way of thinking. But that is just reality. And I always said, people always told me, you're so sorry this happened to you. And I started saying right away, no, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm not sad about it. Was it fun? No, but it made me who I am today. And it put me on my life path that I'm destined to be on. So I started to say those one-liners right away, but really speaking about it and talking about it and living it and doing my retreats with women and mentoring a lot of people came later on in life, that I knew I needed to have enough experience that people would listen to me, because I didn't want to talk to people and then just do nothing, because I like to get results. That's just who I am. So I just learned to be patient in the process and figuring out what is my path to get the message out. And my first journey was, I went into corporate, and then I went to doing retreats and masterminds with women around the world. And that became my vehicle. And now I'm speaking on stages and on podcasts. And I just wrote my first book that's coming out probably in June. So, it's just a journey. And sometimes we say, why did you wait? You're 50. Why are you waiting? I said, I'm not waiting. I've been sharing my message for the past 25 years, but the message became different over time and more focused and intentional to several audiences. And now I have the vehicles to do it. Everything is divine timing. So you cannot force the process.
It's so much in what you've shared there. I was going to ask you what form your message is taking now, but you mentioned about retreats. Put a flag in the conversation. We'll come back to that. I want to go back to 23, 24 years. So how old were you when you were able to kind of reintegrate into society? You could walk and you could kind of, hold the job down.
3 years. So by 26, I started work full time again in the fitness industry. So I had a personal trainer and they asked me to work in the gym. I started with spinning classes, and then I became a general manager and I started to open new gyms. But I knew I didn't want to spend my lifetime in the fitness industry. So I did it for about, I would say, a good maybe like 7 years. And then I went into corporate in the consulting business, where I was very successful as a salesperson and general manager and sales VP of sales over a team of 25 sales accountants with 800 company with 800 consultants.
Why did you make that step? Was it a conscious?
No, it was not conscious. I just wanted something else. And my resume didn't make any sense. I remember meeting the CEO. She was an incredible woman, built a company from scratch, very successful in consulting with the Fortune 500 companies. And she had 800 consultants in her company. Like, that's massive.
Yeah, it's big.
That's only I invited you is because your resume doesn't make any sense. And I wanted to meet the person behind the resume and hear the story. And she hired me based on my sports, my drive, my healing, a journey I had to go through. So everything that happened to me, she didn't choose me for my education because dentistry and financial services consulting have nothing to do with each other. So she says, you're the most interesting person applying for becoming a business unit director of one of my 8 units with a resume that really doesn't make any sense. But then she heard my life story and my journey. And she says, I'm hiring you based on attitude, not on skill. And I believe you can give this unit the energy in the lifespan it deserves because it was not doing well, that unit. And so she hired me because who I am, not of my education.
But I'm immensely curious, though, Esther. What made you send your CV? Did you just kind of have a, you know, did you kind of like throw enough shit against the wall and something's going to come back? Or okay, so you just sent your CV out to loads of places on spec, or were you responding to specific job adverts?
No, I never. I never have really had to apply for any jobs in my lifetime. That's the funny part. I sent it to a recruiting agency who somebody introduced me to the owner of the recruiting agency, and she said, just send your resume and see who finds something. And she says, I think you will really fit in this job. It's sales, it's people, and I'm like, okay, now yeah, why not? Like,
Go with the flow.
go. She said this will be great for you, and she told the CEO like, this resume doesn't make any sense, but you have to meet her. And so she says, okay, let's meet her. So that's how that came in. But that's how I got the job. It's just somebody that was curious about who's the person behind this resume that didn't make any sense.
Yeah. And just in that little story there you've shared, it absolutely epitomizes the intent, purpose, point, whatever of this podcast. And that is that you were the value in that situation, not what you knew, not what you'd done, not what you could do, but you. And that's a message which is true for everybody, but one that not so many people have truly experienced in the kind of visceral way that you have.
They all want to have a title, right? People chase titles and income. So how companies are hiring is based on education and titles. And instead of hiring on the person and attitude. So when I consult with companies and their executive team and the company owners, I said, half of your people are not even qualified to be in the position they're in, and you have the wrong people in the wrong position. So how you're going to change that is hire people based on attitude and their passion and not on the education they have. I freak do not care if you're a PhD or have an MBA. If you're not having the work ethic and the attitude to make a difference in this organization, I can teach you any skill, but I cannot teach you attitude because that's just who you are. And that just takes way longer to change people's attitude and teach them skills. So you want somebody that's passionate and excited, that actually loves what they do, instead of people just apply for a job because they have the title and they want a paycheck. And I think that is what is a shift in companies is, why are you hiring this person? Think about it. Like, they don't even think. Like, it's fascinating to me.
Are you talking there about the work you're doing now for companies?
I still do that. I own a tech and training company with my wife. It's called Codeburger Technologies. It has a personality science system called Bank that predicts buying behavior of your customer in 90 seconds or less. And our AI does it in a nanosecond. We serve companies and small business owners and entrepreneurs all around the world. And then I'm doing my consulting because I've been a consultant since I was 30. And I've been serving Fortune 500 companies, but also smaller businesses. And I still am a consultant right now today, that where I work with companies and their executive teams or their top leaders to help the company grow. And I speak on stage about sales and leadership, or I talk about spiritual intelligence in business. And soon I'm going to talk about my book on stage and get people really to step into their life purpose and their passion and their purpose. But that is what I'm doing right now. So that's why I'm busy.
And where does the focus on working? You mentioned earlier about the focus on talking to young women and getting them to live their lives now. Where does that fit into everything that Esther's doing?
Now, the good news is women are learning a lifetime. Men stop learning an average at the age of 26. So it's easy to tap into women because they always show up at seminars, webinars, workshops, events. If you look at the audience at events, conferences, or summits, it's literally 80-20, sometimes 70-30, depending on the industry. But it's mostly women that show up to learn and grow. Men have this arrogance that they already know everything because they're a man. They're here to hunt and kill. I know how to hunt and kill, so I'm done. But it is the lifelong journey, and there's a lot of research about this. So when you're born, it's all about your physical body. You have to grow, you learn to crawl, walk, run, right? And then about the age of 6, it's all about learning. So now it becomes about your intelligence, your brain. And that is until average like between 20 and 26. We go to school, university, school. And then at 26 and later on, it's about your emotional intelligence. How are you going to be with people and relationships, and how are you going to, your attitude and who you are evolves over time. And then probably 40 plus, it's all about spiritual intelligence because we suddenly realize life is short. And now we want to connect to source and who am I and why am I on this planet and what's my life purpose? What's my passion? I hate my job. What do I want to do? So that is the lifespan. And that's why men stop at average 26 because they think it's all about the brain and being intelligent and hunt, kill. I need to make money for my family and have to find the love of my life so I can duplicate myself into the future. And women just want to learn and grow their whole lifetime. So reaching women is not that hard. It's harder to reach men.
You don't have a sense of a mission or purpose to reach men, though, do you?
I do. But mostly it goes through women. Because the women-owned businesses are more likely to bring me in than the male-dominant organizations because they see me as a threat. Because when a woman is smarter than a man or has a message that resonates deeper than theirs, their ego is gonna not allow it to happen. So I always say I go where the love is. And then where there's an emotional intelligence man, they will bring me in. If they're even spiritual, intelligently evolved, they for sure will bring me in. But that's not the world we're living in. Most of, male dominant organizations, they just bring in other men and all can pounce their chest.
And so the cycle continues. You mentioned your wife there. How did you both meet?
We met in Amsterdam. She is one of the top female keynote speakers around the world. She spoke on stage with Tony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki, Les Brown in Amsterdam at a big conference with 5,000 people. And I bought her program, Bank, that I'm now partnering the company with, but I was a customer of hers. Oh. I went to her training, became certified and licensed, started to sell it in Europe. I became the number one salesperson in her whole company. I opened up Europe. She came back to Europe after a few months. We traveled around and fell in love. And then a few months later, she asked me to marry her. I said yes. And then I sold my company, my home, my car, everything. I moved with 3 suitcases of clothes to the United States. And that's the story.
You can't tell a story like that so quickly. There's got to be nuance and there's got to be detail.
I know. Yeah, now just tell me what details you want.
No, I was just kind of bowled over by the story. It's quite incredible. You mentioned your book earlier.
Yeah.
What's the story there? What was the impetus for it, and what do you want for it?
People say, when are you gonna write your book? Do you have a book? And I said, I don't have a book. Like, no, I'm the book. And then the funny thing is, I'm reading stories to Kai, and he said, Mimi, where's your book? Can you read your book? And I'm like, are you meaning my book that I wrote? Yeah. I said, I didn't write a book yet, I guess. And then I thought about it all night long. Like, he's telling me that I have to write my book. And then I was hosting a retreat with 25 women. And I was sitting there and I was guiding a meditation. And I was listening to all the stories afterwards. And then I did another meditation and a singing bowl session. And I got such a clear download that I had to write my book right now. And they gave me the title. And this is the title. And I came out of it. I'm like, I have to write my book. And I have to do it now. And then, and I turned 50 in January. I have to do it now. So last year, August, I started to write my book. I finished it in December. It's his editor right now. I just finished reading the manuscript and he's going over the final reading and editing right now. But it was suddenly a fast journey. So I dedicate the whole book to Kai, my son, for being the inspiration to push me to do it now. And then, it all came together. So it actually started to flow because I'm not a natural writer. I'm not poetic or romantic. Like I had an amazing partner and she was poetic and a great writer and great speaker. And she says, you're so short. Like, can you bring a bit more juice to it? And I was like, that's not my life purpose. That's not why I'm here. Like I'm here to wake people up. So I have all those one-liners that just put them in a shock state and they realize, oh, life is short. So it didn't work, but she's an incredible friend. And her wife, her girlfriend, is a writer, a famous writer in the Netherlands. So she told me, you just should write. I said, yeah, I don't know where to start. But then in the moment, it was probably divine timing. I guess it always is divine timing. It started to flow and I started to write. So the title is The Undermined Soul. And it's a book full of a blueprint and strategies how to become an empowered leader. It's all about my whole life journey is in it with a lot of vulnerable personal stories, but then how I applied what happened to me in my life to get out of it and the work I did. And I give them exercises and some things to think about. So the editor says it's a really good book. So let's see where that goes.
Do you have a launch date for it?
I asked my spiritual leaders, I have 3 of them, and they all gave the same date. So it's either April 29th, well, it's too soon because I want it to be really good. And then May 30th, I'm in Europe for a month. I don't want to launch it when I'm not here to do everything I have to do. So probably June 29th, I'm going to launch it. So they gave me the dates.
June 29th, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It sounds far away. At the same time, I believe in my timing.
It'll be here like that.
I want to do it the right way with the right energy behind it and the awareness of that it's coming and create curiosity. And
yeah. Well, if you like, we can. 29th is a Sunday. So if you like, we can get this podcast episode coming out at the same time, if that helps you at all with
yeah, probably. I think that's a great
publicity. Well, you can't have, at those sort of times, you can't have too much to put out, can you?
No, the more the better.
Yeah. When you think about someone hearing about your book, picking it up, deciding whether they should buy it or not, what would you say to them?
I'm probably going to give them 30 years in one book. They can cut their waiting game short by 30 years by reading my book. And I always tell women, I met with Jeffrey Gitomer. Do you know him?
The sales guy, yeah.
Yeah. Incredible man. And he said, Esther, you are the person that helps women to understand that they should not step into their pants, but instead they have to step into their power. And that's exactly what your book is doing. So I give them basically in one book, the meat on the bone, how to cut time short and start doing now with very practical ideas and exercises and not waiting. There's a lot of inspiration to not wait. My near-death experience stories are there, my life stories in there, how Cher and I met, how we got our son, how we created a modern family. Kai has siblings, but they're not in our family. But he knows them. There's a relationship. So there's a lot of inspiration and motivation, but also practical blueprint and strategies to actually put it in action right now and just not wait for an impactful event. Just do it right now. And I think why they should read it is we all need to know that one book that actually can help people to move and take action. I read a book a week, and most of them are just disappear in the background, but there are always those few that will stay on my desk or right in front of me. Like there's something in there that I can never take out of me again. My hope is that they read it and realize that we all have our life path. My life was not necessarily easy. Emotional abuse, sexual abuse, losing all the money, making money again, getting fired, and then finding another. I never thought firing was the worst thing that happened to me. Like, okay, I didn't like it anyway. Thank you for firing me. Give me a check and I will have another job in a week from now. And that always happened. Like, it's like to write all the stories in a serious and funny way at the same time. It's vulnerable, but it's me. So I put myself out there in a very vulnerable way. But I think we're living in a time that people want vulnerable, authentic, and real, but also like, okay, so what now? What? I'll read the book and what do I do with it? So every chapter has what to do now. So, yeah.
Because that's so often the challenge with books like that is that they kind of they're not so practical. It's what I can say.
Yeah, there's just only text. There's no what to do with it.
Yeah.
And so I put in my book, I have the story, my story, and the lessons I learned from it and how I applied it, implemented in my life. And then there's questions I ask, they have to answer. And then there's action steps they have to take to make it happen now. So if they follow it, they kind of got a lot of time shorter and not, figuring out and finding out, maybe 20 years from now instead of now. So that's the goal of the book.
I have a 23-year-old daughter. It sounds like that it would be a good book for me to get her, or for her to get.
Yes, because what we don't realize, especially in our 20s, we think we know everything, right? We went to school and we start working and like life is like this. And I thought I knew everything. Yeah, like I was not different than anyone else. Like, wow, now I made it. Like, and then, life happens.
You got hit by a motorbike, literally.
Right. So I think the younger you start reading books like this, you start to realize that, why am I here? You start to think differently. And what do I really want to do? And I ask people all the time, if you knew your expiration date, what would you start doing right now? If you knew you only had 1 year to live or 5 years, would you keep staying in this job? Would you stay in this relationship? Would you live your life exactly the same? Or what would you change? And 99% of the time, people would change radically almost everything in their life.
Yeah.
It's the same question. If you have $5 million in your bank account, what would you do every day? Oh, I would be a photographer, or I would, speak on stage, or I would write a book, why are you not doing it right now? Like, maybe you actually gonna make those $5 million by doing what you actually love instead of staying in your job.
So what is it? Why are so many people, I think, I forget who the writer or speaker was, he said that the vast majority of the population are living lives of quiet desperation. Why is that so?
I think that's how we were raised. That's the education system. They educate you
Again.
stay small and just get a job and live minimal. When you have a paycheck and you can have a roof above your head and you can eat, you just should be grateful and shut up. Like, that is the education system. And it's also the generation of our parents that, come from a war generation, World War I, World War II, my grandparents, my parents. And it's like, there's a different mindset. I think with so many speakers right now and so many opportunities for young people to really have so much inspiration and motivation to do differently, it should not be that way, but the education system never changed. So they learn today in school, they learn the same shit we had to learn like 40 years ago. Like, what the heck? Nothing evolved in education.
And it was no use. It was no use then.
Well, no use back in this. I can't imagine right now. Like, there's for sure no use. So it's. I think that's why I'm happy. I'm a parent at 50 and not at 25, because with my life experience and my wisdom, I come from a totally different perspective as I would have done when I was 25. Because I was still so manipulated by the education system and my parents that this is the way we live. This is what we do. Like, my dad always told me, you're born like a penny. You will never be a quarter. And I said, who says I was born like a penny? Because you're a penny doesn't mean I'm a penny. I'm a quarter. Maybe I'm even $1. Maybe I'm even $1 million. Like, who says I'm a freaking penny? Like, it's how they say money doesn't grow on trees and all those sayings, those one-liners we get put into in our brain as children. It sticks with us for the rest of our life unless you undo all that. And it requires a lot of personal development. But it's like, I think there's some things left what the parents taught me, like manners and respect and all those basic things. But everything else come from my personal development journey and choosing my life and not the life of my parents. I knew as a child that I never wanted to live the life of my parents. So I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to make a lot of money so I can travel and can help a lot of people. I didn't want to be just living average and just paycheck to paycheck. What's that going to do? It's misery. That's why so many people are miserable. They just live paycheck. They just try to survive. They're not thriving. They're not living.
What do you think it was that was contributing to how you felt at 15? You said that you were depressed. I don't know. Did you say that you were suicidal? I can't remember if you said that. Did you ever try to take your own life?
I tried. Not many people know. If my parents really don't know. I told my mom. She knows now. But I got sexual abuse at that time by one of my teachers in my high school for years. Like, and manipulated. I would not graduate if I would tell anyone. You know how that goes.
Wow.
So I went to a Catholic school And I'm not even Catholic, so that's the whole irony of it. And then it's like, yeah, I was just not happy at all. Like what? And I couldn't talk to anyone. I had low self-esteem. I was just miserable as a teenager. And then I went to university and like, you know, I've tried to finish that. And my outlet was my sports and some of my friends, but I was very quiet person. My mom always is amazed that I'm a keynote speaker right now because she said for the first 20 years, she didn't say a word. He didn't want to talk even one-on-one. Let's stand alone in a family gathering. And now let's stand alone for there's strangers. And now all you do is talk to strangers all day. And I told my mom that it's because I went on this like 25-year long personal development journey to grow and learn and get better and get comfortable and do the things that are uncomfortable. So I become good at it. And it's not an overnight success. She said, you're so lucky. I freaking not lucky. I worked my ass off.
Can you, that's an interesting point you raised there. You said about the book, you were talking to potential reader of it, that in the book is the 30 years of experience that gives you the kind of shortcut. But can you shortcut it though? Doesn't it take time? Yes, you've got the practical steps and whatever, but
of course, you need your life experience and wisdom. That's why we're here. You cannot cut that short. But getting connected to your life purpose, that is what you can do already way younger, because the moment when you come to this planet what your purpose is. So until 6 years old, we know exactly why we're here. But then we get so manipulated by the school system and our parents that we lose our connection with source and who we truly are. And we become like a little clone of the system around us until we get a wake-up call that that's actually not who we are, who we want to be. But most people have to go to a very impactful event to wake up. That's why a lot of people are sleeping through their lives until they wake up. Because we're younger, we're also more healthier or less at risk. There are examples like me at 23, but most people right now, my age group in their 50s, they get wake-up calls all the time. And so that's why I say, don't wait till you're 50 and get either in a midlife crisis and, what do I do with the rest of my life? I'm going to die. No, maybe you're going to be 100. I tell my mom all the time, you're freaking 78. Don't think you're going to die. Maybe you have another 20 years, 30 years. People are so focused on they're going to die that they're actually going to die young because that's what you focus on. They're focusing on the life you actually want to live. And I want people to realize that in their 20s, and that's why I wrote the book. So then still they have to go to their lifetime experience and personal development journey. And it is not overnight. It will take decades. But when you know at a young age what you truly love and you start living it and start doing the work to really head into that direction, then you're going to have a really happy life. A lot of people are miserable because they're not living their life purpose and their passion. They live somebody else's life, either the life of their partner or the life of their parents. Not wrong. So that is where we're at. I cannot shortcut your life experience. I can shortcut the journey of your life experience by reading the book and really getting clear on how to find your life purpose. And it's in the book, how to connect with your life purpose and your passion. It's not difficult, but we make it difficult.
Yeah. And I guess ultimately you have to create the space and the time in order to do that. There's no magic wands. There's no kind of magic fairy dust. We do have to do the work.
Even I knew my life purpose, but I didn't put it into action until I was probably 33, because I still knew I had to do the work. So I went on my personal development journey and my work experience. And when I was in the moment that I realized in 2008 that I wanted to be my own business person and I built 2 companies at the same time, a consulting company and a retreat and mastermind business. So that was the time where I started to share my message full out all day, every day. But up that point, there were just like short conversations, small conversations, sometimes just one-liners, or when people made comments, I just gave them, no, it's totally fine. Everything happens for a reason. Now, is it fun? No, not necessarily, but that's life. I don't know anybody that only had fun experiences in their lifetime.
So what was it that you saw in Sherry's talk? Presumably she was talking about bank. So just help me get clear on where you were at in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, why you were at that event, what you saw about bank that made you think that it would contribute to your life's purpose. And it obviously has, like in the fullness of time, because of where you are now. But what did you see and hear and experience about bank and maybe in Sherry herself?
when I heard her speak, she talked about bank and personality types and felt like, oh my gosh, there we go again. That was my first response because I went through DISC and management drives and insights. I went through a lot of those assessments in my career. I had to do it myself and I gave them to others to understand them. And I thought they were freaking complicated. Who wants to read 50 pages about someone else? Nobody does.
Don't even want to read about myself.
I didn't even want to read 50 pages about myself. Can I get the 1-page summary?
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
So the first 10 minutes, I was not engaged at all until she said that she reverse engineered the science of people into their buying behavior and making about the other person across from you and not about you. I felt like, oh, that's genius. And then
Makes
she said
sense.
her assessment was only 90 seconds instead of an hour. I thought that is freaking more brilliant because who has time for an hour assessment? Nobody wants to do this. I remember sitting there and doing all those freaking questions for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Ask that many questions to know who I am. Like, that I was frustrated with the assessment. So, like, oh, that's genius. So I got engaged. Then she shared that when we communicate, we turn off 75% of the population because there's 4 personality types and we align with our own right away. And it feels like you just met your new best friend when you have a sales conversation or a dating experience or you sit in the bus or the airplane, you sit next to one and we hit it off because you're the same personality type. But the other 3, you just like turn off right away. So she said that like, oh, that makes total sense. Because also in my own family, I'm the only action in the assessment tool that is entrepreneurial and want to live her life on her own terms. Don't tell me what to do. I like freedom. But my family, they're all blueprint. They're like structure, systems, tradition. This is how we do it. And well, who says we do it like this? And I was felt like the black sheep. So there were 2 reasons why I went to the conference. I didn't go to the conference for Sherry Tree. I wanted to see Les Brown and Robert Kiyosaki and Tony Robbins, right? And Sherry was just one of the other keynote speakers and I bought her program. But the reason I bought is one for my consulting business to help my consultants to understand people and help them to get their own jobs or extend their projects or connect with the people in the organization to be put on a different project. What's coming next? So I wanted to teach them people skills because the reason they hired me to put them on gigs is because they're great in their expertise, but they suck communicating with another human being. So I'll teach them how to actually communicate with another human being with a very simple system that everybody understands and they can apply and implement right away. And then I applied it in my personal life. And then my mom said, oh my gosh, I finally understand my daughter after 39 years.
Because you had changed the way that you talked to her with her being blueprint.
And I showed her the assessment. So she did it. And I showed her who I am. And I was like, oh my gosh, now I understand. I parent you the wrong way. And it just hits right in the moment so much that just realizing we were different and that we're all amazing and we're all annoying at the same time. That's just, people are like that. So, I was like a little pain in the bum because I was different. I didn't want to listen to my dad's rules. I didn't like any of his rules. So there were too many.
I don't know very much about bank. I've been through it because obviously you can't know Ross Keating for very long and not be introduced to bank. That was where I found out about it. But what I do know about it, I was 99% certain that you were action.
Yeah.
As I am. That's my number one. Yeah. It was quite a, like you say, that kind of light bulb, like, sorry, I just moved 4 different virtual cards that have various statements on them into priority order. And that's it. Like on the face of it, it doesn't sound like it makes any sense whatsoever. But as soon as you do it and then you see yourself reflected back to you, yeah, there's some next level shit here going on. Like maybe there is some magic fairy dust being sprinkled over that. I don't know, but
yeah, there is. Sherry created it. And, her life journey is very impressive too. Like, she grew up Mormon and, had to get out of the church and, then very successful entrepreneur at the age of 30, making millions, losing everything, living in a storage unit, building the bank system and building again a multi-million-dollar empire. It's like we all have our story, but she created something that is just simple and easy. We're living in a time that people like simple, easy, and fast. And so, and it's accurate.
And that solves a problem. And it solves a real problem.
Massive problem. People.
All of whom are both amazing and annoying at the same time.
Yeah, we all are. We all are amazing in who we are and our personality types. And then we're freaking annoying to the majority of the population. That's why I love the book Surrounded by Idiots. Because we all think all the other personality types are idiots, because they're not like us. But that's just how our judgmental operation system works. But I think when we teach people more about there's 4 personality types and not like hour-long test and 50-page report, but just 90 seconds and a 3-page report. This is how you communicate and negotiate with this person, or how you talk to this person. How do you get what you want? Even from your own spouse, you want to go to Hawaii and he wants to go to Bora Bora. Like, how do you negotiate? It's just that simple. And I have to negotiate with my 4-year-old. He's a master negotiator.
They all are.
He's a master.
You talking about your 4-year-old, you said that you talked about it in the book. So I guess that you're comfortable talking about it on the podcast, about how he came into your life. What's the story there?
No, I didn't want any children. How the story starts. I never wanted children. I didn't want to pass on any of my DNA or generational ancestor bullshit. So I was very clear on that. Then I met Sherry, who was passionate about having children, but we never had real serious conversation about just random. I'm like, nah, if I don't engage in it, it's just going to fly over.
Yeah.
But then she got real serious about it. She says, I'm in my 40s. It's really time to have a conversation. I said, I really don't want it for this and this reasons. But she just look at it from a different perspective. You can just have a little human, and you can, with all your personal development, create this incredible young little human being and make that your project to create something special in the world. And like, she came with all these arguments. Of course, she knows my personality type. So she was selling me the whole concept. So I agreed to it. So then we had to find a sperm donor. Now, we got many offers from men that really wanted to donate. And then we said, no, we don't want anybody we know, because it all sounds romantic and funny and very, until the little human arrives and now they have an opinion and they want to be involved and blah, blah, blah. So we went to a sperm bank. Now, that has been the hardest thing ever, because you don't meet them in person. So you look at the profile on paper, and then you realize they're freaking all college students. That's how they were. They're at university or college. I'm like, okay, now I'm staring at a 20-year-old, and I'm in my late 40s. Like, how can I do? So they're all baby pictures and adult pictures. And then you can pick blue eyes, blonde hair. So we created our own designer baby with finding the sperm donor. And then we used my eggs and then the sperm donor, and Sherry carried. So it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And that's how we met, of course, fertility clinic, IVF, and we had 12 very healthy embryos. And so we put in the first one boy. We could choose boy or girl. That's the advantage we have here in California. You can actually choose the gender and the one you want to put in. And we wanted a boy. We both don't know what to do with a girl. We have no high heels, no makeup, no. Yeah. It's like, that's going to end up like in a disaster. So with boys, that's easy. So we both wanted a boy. So we put in a boy. And then at 8 weeks, we went back and I was looking at the screen and told the nurse, there are 2. She said, no, there's only 1. I said, there are 2. She says, no, there's only 1. I said, there are 2. Like, look here and look there. And she says, oh, let me check. Oh, you're right. There are 2. Now the little man decided to split in 2. And I'm like, oh no, not identical twins. That was literally my first response, because I'm one of an identical, and my experience was not that glorious. Although we have a great relationship, but my experience was not glorious, and I didn't want him to go through that or them to go through it. And then I let it go. Okay, I guess that is my journey then. Okay, I didn't want to have children. Now I'm putting 1 and I get 2 as a bonus. So I just sit with it. And then we went back at 11 weeks and there were no heartbeats. So they passed. And it happens a lot when the embryo splits in 2, when it's not like a healthy split in any capacity, just, the body's let go. And so we were devastated, because now we have your hopes, and we just told everyone. Like, it was like, we just let the world know. And it's like, oh no, now we have to tell them. So it was really tough. That was in February, and then in November 2019, on 11/11 at 11:11 a.m., we put in Kai, again a boy, and got pregnant. And he came 10 weeks early. So he had another surprise for us, that We were not ready at all, but just COVID just hit. We're at home. We had not one course or no idea what to do. Most appointments were canceled with the doctors because, no, yeah, if nothing happens, you're fine. And suddenly, Sherry's cervix thin. She was on bed rest for a month. And then he came 10 weeks early. And there we were. Suddenly, here he is. And like, I missed the birth because of COVID. And then we were never together in the NICU. So he was in the NICU for 6 weeks. And I was going from 8 a.m. till noon holding him skin to skin. And then we passed out, and Sherry went from 1 to 5 p.m. every day holding skin to skin. And so we never saw each other from 7 till 6. Sherry and I didn't see each other, and we were never together with Kai for the first 6 weeks. The day he came home was the first time we were together as a family. And then he came home, and like he was born at 3.5 pounds. He came home at 6 pounds, and I'm holding this little nugget. Freak no clue what to do because you don't get like any instructions. You just have to keep him. They should tell him, just keep him alive. Great. Yeah. Nobody wanted to help.
Simple.
Yeah. Our home cleaners left. We had no family because my family is in Europe. Sherry's family is in Florida and in Utah. They didn't come over. We had no friends helping. So we're there, the two of us, pivoting our company through COVID from live events and speaking gigs to now virtual and tech, and having a freaking 6 pound little human being that we just try to keep alive. It's like, it was freaking insane. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Like, yeah, they only poop and eat and cry. So it's, it's very basic, but it's intense because they literally take over your 24/7 mind. It's like a mind fuck when you have a child. And like, and then when he was only 1, I told Sherry, freaking, I have an identity crisis. And I realized I was really losing my identity because now I'm suddenly a mom. And am I still a business person? And I was really confused. Like, how do I spend my 24 hours living my life purpose, running the business, being a mom, being a wife, like being a friend, like traveling the world? Like, oh, it was really confusing for a long time. I'm clear now, but it was like a lot.
Was there any sense for you, because that's the second time you've talked about challenges with your sense of identity? You talked about it with your identical twin sister. Was there echoes of that for you in this situation, kind of not losing your identity?
Great. It's both identity. It's in my book. I write about both identity crises too in my book because I think people go through that one way or another at one point in their life. Most people in a midlife crisis. A midlife crisis is not a crisis. It's a wake up. It's not a crisis. It's actually the moment you actually realize you're alive, or maybe for the first time. So it's, as an identical twin, it's because you're exactly the same and you're the same age and you're born 5 minutes apart. And there's this little really competition that the outside world puts on you, right? Having a child, that was not an identity I compared with Kai, but more with myself. Who am I? Before I could very say I'm a spiritual being having human experience and I'm here to impact the life of as many people as possible to wake up at an early age to live their life purpose. Now I'm a mom. How does that fit into what I'm doing right now? So it was more my personal who am I question from an identity perspective. And as a twin, it was also who am I? But the who am I came from the outside world comparing me to my twin sister all the time. And now there was no comparison with Kai, but was truly with myself. Like now I got another who am I component that I have to add to my story, and how's that going to work?
So how did you integrate that?
I must say the first 2 years were hard because we had COVID and I felt like I was locked up in a cage. I couldn't go where I want to go. I didn't see my family for 2 years. Like they never met Kai until he turned 1. So there were a lot of components that made it real hard, but I don't know. I think it's just, I just had to accept that I can be all of it. I can be a mom and a business owner, entrepreneur and a speaker and an author and a wife and a friend. I can be all of that. And that's all who I am. And still putting my life purpose and passion in the center of why I'm here on this planet. And obviously Kai is part of my journey. So Kai taps into another piece of my heart that I never felt before. So the love I feel for him, I will do anything for him. Like the mama bear came out of me. Like I never knew I had a mama bear, but yeah, don't touch my child because I'm going to break every bone in your body. And I'm not kidding.
What do you think I've asked various versions of this question, and I never really know exactly what I'm asking or why I'm asking it, but it has come to me. We've talked a few times about the 15-year-old Esther, and what she was going through. I don't know whether the question is what do you think she would make of the Esther that's in this conversation with me now, or what would you say to that version of yourself then? Because there obviously is a connection stretching over decades from that 15-year-old and everything that she was experiencing and feeling and going through, and the Esther that's now in this conversation with me. What's that thread? What's that connection? I don't know. It's too vague, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's a good question. It's a deep question. But I think everything that happens in our lifetime happens for a reason. It's always divine that it happens. It had to happen for who I am today. So the sexual abuse for 3 years was not fun. And I didn't talk to anybody about it until I was 39.
Mm.
So that experience, I think what I felt back in the day was like I was not seen, not heard, not loved, not respected for me, my body, my mind, my soul, my who I am. I think if I look now back at that, like I had to go through that so I can relate to so many more people right now. And so when I meet somebody, let's say I meet my 15-year-old again, all I would say is like, you're loved and I see you and I hear you. And this experience is gonna set you up to impact so many lives into the future. And it doesn't take away from that experience, but I did so much healing around it, but it took me a long time. That's why I said I needed time to be ready to be the spokesperson for so many others. So that's why when I had the download at 23 of my near-death experience, I was not ready. I knew I had to go through all the healing and the personal growth and personal development and getting really in all areas ready to carry the weight to share this message, but also carry the weight to help others to step into their power. But because there's a lot of energy that goes into that, and you have to hold the energy in the space. Like if they become vulnerable, how do you deal with that situation? If you're still messed up in your own emotional trauma, you cannot be there for another human being. So it just was one of the exercises to train my muscle for becoming that strong and powerful to be a voice for so many, but also a safe place for so many to land, to come to my retreats or come to my masterminds or my coaching or the companies that hire me to freaking wake them up to treat their people differently. So that I think it's all part of the journey. So I want to tell her this is a stepping stone in your life that you don't see right now, but just know you're loved, you're seen, you're heard, and this is going to be a very big component of your future, what you can do for others and humanity. So,
Isn't that such a powerful thing for anyone to hear at any time in their life? I think that there's an aspect of wanting to be seen and heard and loved, regardless of whether you're 15 years old or whether you're 55 years old.
that's what they say. People are aching their whole lifetime to be recognized, to be appreciated. And they will say, like, men die for it and babies cry for it. My baby's cry says, hello, see me, I'm hungry, I have a poo diaper. And then they are 4 years old, they cry, see me, like, I want attention. And when adults cry, it's the same. Hello, see me, I want attention. I am pain. Like, talk to me, be there for me, give me a hug. Like this morning, I went to get my coffee and walk my dog. And there's a man standing outside and he's crying. And the guy's in his 50s. And I walk up to him and says, are you okay? Because obviously you're not. So he says, no, I'm not okay. He said, my wife just dumped me, literally. I said, tell me more. And he said, we're here for spring break with the children. And she just took my money and my car keys and she left with the children in the car. And I'm standing here with nothing. And I had a conversation with him. And he said, I just want a hug. And I gave him a hug. And he says, I'm just mad right now. I said, mad is good but you're mad because you're sad. You just feel like devastated what happened right now. And maybe you don't even know why. And he says, yeah, I know. It probably happens for a reason. I said, yeah, baby, you cannot see it right now, but 6 months from now, you're going to look back that it was the best day of your life because you're going to realize you deserve better. And now you just have to go through the pain and all the practical parts that come with this. But I talked to him for a little bit. And, sometimes we meet people for a reason. It's that one interaction that can change. And I talked to him and he said, you just changed the way I look at the situation. And I'm gonna go different into the conversation. And so I said, why don't you go back? This is painful, but you don't want to be with her anymore. Yeah, he says, I don't know. I said, so you're going to say, okay, you just send her a message and say, you know, I'm hurt that this happened the way it happened, not for me, but for the children. I love you, so I'm letting you go in love, and let's solve this as two adults. And don't hurt the children in the journey. And I'm letting you go on your path. It's okay if you want to move on your own. And if just the moment you send that message, she's probably going to come back that she wants you back. But now it's up to you. Do you want to go through this again? Or are you okay with it? And say, no, I think it's good that we both go our own paths. And so I gave him a different perspective of to love is to let go. And because we meet people for a reason, season, or a lifetime. We all know that. And so I said, I know it's hard, but it's so fresh. But just remember this day. And 6 months from now, you're going to be back here in Laguna Beach. And you're going to go back to that same bench. And you're going to think what happened that day. And then you realize, I probably would have never left the relationship, but it needed to happen. That's what we do in life. We impact people's lives. We do it all day, every day. You can choose to make it a positive one or a negative one. Everything is a choice. I also tell people the moment you meet them, you're connected for life energetically.
I can't think. I'm glad to be connected to you energetically for the rest of my life. That's going to be good for me, and I hope good for you too. And I can't think of a better story really to bring this conversation to a close. I think that story about your interaction with that guy really exemplifies everything that we've been talking about. With such a rich and deep and varied and zigzaggy life that you've had, Esther, we can obviously only take a whistle-stop tour through it in an hour and a half that we've had together. Are there any parts of your non-straight line journey that we've only touched on like really too briefly, or we're not really looked at all, that you think would be particularly inspiring or encouraging or helpful for the listener?
I think maybe the phase I am right now. I lived for 11 years in the United States, and we're going to Europe every summer for a month because I want Kai to have the European lifestyle experience, to see my family and friends in the nest. But then we go to Italy, and then I've been working with Sherry for a decade, building the company together. And right now I'm starting to focus on me more. And I told her I want to build my own consulting business more and do my retreats and launch my book. So I'm shifting from full-time building the company together to being part-time in our joint venture company, and then doing part-time my passion and my purpose, and really fuel that energy into the world. And that is where I'm right now. So it's another pivotal moment. Like, it's divine timing to step more into that right now. Kai is old enough. He's going to school. Already, he went to school at 2, but my life gives me enough space that I can do both. So there is never just one path or one thing you do for the rest of your life. There's so many things you can do. And this is what I want to do right now. So this is another pivotal moment. I'm 50. And then people said, when you turn 50, things change. And I must say, I'm never was attached to any age or number. I'm still not. My goal is to be at least 100. So,
amen.
And so the only reason I wanted to write the book last year is because it was such a divine timing. And I said, okay, I'm going to then finish it before I turn 50. So suddenly that 50 became a number. And also writing the book, it inspired myself to do more of this message and share more about the story. Also to lead by example for Kai, that it's okay to build a company together and then also do your own thing, because that is your path. So it's our moment in time. Yeah.
Well, I hope in some small way that this podcast can help you in this next zag. Never stop zagging, I guess, is the message. Is it? Just go with the flow. Just keep going.
Yeah. And it's not always easy. It sounds, you say, oh, go with the flow. Now, your life has a lot of things, responsibilities and obligations, but I still recommend people go with the flow and just do what you love to do. And then life will be really good, and there will be tough moments, and then you have to find your way again.
You've talked many times during our conversation about the help that you provide other people. How can the listener and I help you the most right now?
To spread the word of my book. Because I believe if they read my book, if there's just one golden nugget in there or one sentence of the whole book, 75,000 words, if there's maybe 10 words that's going to change how you feel or make decisions you have been waiting for to make for a long time, then my mission is accomplished. I'm not going to say you're going to maybe love my whole book, but maybe one chapter is going to change your life, or for at least right now. And that's my goal.
I got a very selfish question now. Could I get a signed copy for my daughter?
Of course you can. Yes.
The only other question I want to ask you, Esther, before we wrap up and stop recording is, who do you know who you think would really value and appreciate the space that's created in the Not a Straight Line conversation? Who do you think would really value this experience? Or whose non-straight line journey you'd like to hear?
There's so many. I talked to Tony Robbins a few months ago. He was a huge he inspired me to get actually healed again at 23. So I talked to him. So I want him to listen to this podcast. There are many people, there's not really necessarily one name. I want to get this book out to as many influential people for them to listen it, who just look at their own life journey from a different angle and be re-inspired for why they're actually doing what they're doing. And then hopefully they would invite me as their guest on their podcast.
But in the same way that I asked Ross and he gave me your name, every guest I've asked has given me a name, even if there's like a bit of an awkward silence and we kind of have to sit here for a little bit.
You should talk for sure to my wife, Sherry Tree, because she has an incredible story about leaving the Mormon church and living her purpose and being gay and building her own life journey, totally different than the rest of the family. She is for sure. I think you will enjoy talking to Jennifer Hill. So I'll introduce you.
Okay.
She lives in Portugal.
Anyone one name? So Jennifer Hill. We'll go with that, and because I'm sure that you're going to be able to introduce me to Sherry at some point.
I can introduce Jennifer Hill. She's going to be a huge inspiration.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, great. Well, I'll follow up with you about that line. So
maybe I can introduce you to Tony Robbins too. Let me know.
Yeah. How do you know him well enough to talk to?
I've been following him since I was 23 years old. Sherry has been on the stage with him for many years around the world with Success Resources, and then in America with the Real Estate Wealth Expo. So we never talked to him backstage because he has so much security. One of our dear friends, Kathy Buckley, is really good friends with Tony Robbins. And she sent him a text, you need to talk to Sherry and Esther. And then he said, let them send me an email. So we sent him an email about who we are, what we do. And then we had a call with him, and then we had a call with his team. And now we're waiting for the next call to hopefully do something bigger in the world together. But yeah, it's always introduction to other people, how you get connected. Although we have been so close to him so many times, but this time it came from the inner circle friendship, not through a business relationship.
Yeah. And doesn't that just say it all? I mean, for goodness sake, it's incredible. Yeah. Well, we'll wait until your episode is out there, and let's coordinate schedules and get it out there to tie in with the publicity around your book. And then we'll get Sherry on as well and get both of your episodes out there. And then maybe at some point in time, the next 6, 9, 12 months or whatever, I could have the kind of conversation with Tony that no one has had with Tony before, because these not a straight line conversations are well, I think they're special, but I think probably every podcast host thinks the conversations they have with their guests are special. But this conversation has been special for me, so I really appreciate your vulnerability and your willingness to share your non-straight line journey. So on behalf of the listener and myself, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Not a Straight Line. If this conversation helped to reorient your internal compass or inspired you in any way, please let us know by heading to podcast.notastraightline.life podcast.com/rate and leave a rating and review. Thanks, as always, to Matthew Bliss of MB Podcast Services for his exquisite engineering of this episode. If you'd like him to help you with your podcast, contact details are in the show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or there's someone whose non-straight line journey you'd just love to hear, then please visit podcast.notastraightline.life/guest. Thanks for being here with me, and I'll see you next week for another amazing, deep, inspiring non-straight line journey. Love you.